Hello everybody, Kai Waza with you. Welcome back to my channel, and today it's time before my late afternoon constitutional, and stopping by somewhere to pick up some dinner to bring back. I don't know what yet, but before that, it's time for another video, and we're gonna do dive into the bowl of questions for the Q&A, questions and answers video, because I still have many parts of this to go. There's still lots of questions in here. I think I just talk too much, spend too much time answering a question. So let's just reach in here and start answering some questions. I've forgotten the questions that are even in here, so this will be very beauty pageanty and spontaneous answering, probably. What type of career did you retire from? Well, I am semi-retired, and I'm not completely retired. I work a couple of days a week as a barista at a coffee shop, which I love doing. And that actually is what I have been doing since I would say the 90s, I believe, has been pretty much working in coffee shops, either managing or just working in. I also, a long time ago, used to do radio announcing, also program directing. I've also done retail work and some retail management, but what I actually was doing when I pretty much stopped working full time was working in coffee shops, which I started doing when I lived in Portland, and I love that whole environment, you know, the sort of chatty, well, they used to call coffee shops penny universities back in the day, way back, because all the intelligentsia gathered there and read books and had discussions amongst them. So the idea was that you could be a person who, you know, maybe you couldn't go to universities or whatever, but for a penny, for the price of a cup of coffee, you could sit around and listen to everybody discuss and enter into discussions, and it would be like getting a higher education. Okay, next question. Do I believe in it? And the way we jump around with these questions. Do I believe in an afterlife? So I always say I'm a pantheist, which means that I think many things are possible, many truths may be possible at the same time, and maybe what you believe for yourself is what actually happens, and what somebody else believes is maybe what actually happens. You know, I do believe that many things may be possible at the same time, and maybe none of it is true. I would tend to say, for myself, as do I believe in an afterlife, that's just a question. That's a question mark to me, as most things are. I'm not really sure whether there is existence after this, if our energy goes on in some other way, somewhere in the universe, it dissipates into something else, whether we're sort of recycled or reincarnated in other creatures or other people here on Earth or in other places, whether there is a heaven, and I don't imagine, you know, the little fat angels playing harps and stuff, but if there is some, you know, wonderful place that we go to, that would be great too. So the question is, the answer to the question is just a question. Like, I don't know. Favorite island to visit? Have you seen them all? So I'm assuming we're talking about Hawaii here. My favorite Hawaiian island to visit, I guess I would have to say Maui, because I've been there more than the other islands, but it's not like I've been there a lot, but I have ended up having friends there, or people that I know, to go and visit. I do like Maui because it's in between. It's kind of in between in terms of development, Oahu, where we are here in Honolulu, and some of the other islands, which are not undeveloped, but just not. They don't have cities, you know, on them. Maui is kind of in between. It has it has urban sprawl without the real hardcore city in it. Has Lahaina, but Kihei, but they're not like cities, big cities, but they have shopping malls and infrastructure, and they also have things to do, and plenty of country and beautiful beaches and whatever. So I guess I would say Maui. Have I been to them all? I have not. I have been to all of the populated Hawaiian islands, except for Ni'ihau. I have not been to because you have to be invited there. It's privately owned. And the other island that is inhabited that I have not been to, that I would like to go to, is Lanai, correctly, or Lanai. It is very small. It is not very populated, and there really isn't anything there. It used to be all pineapple fields, but since pineapple kind of went out, it's just land, and there's a couple of hotels there. There is some hunting. They have deer. But there's not a lot to do or see necessarily. I guess they have nice snorkeling. But I want to go, even just for the day. You can take a ferry from Maui, actually, and go over if you want to just go for the day. I want to go just to see it, to say I've been there. That's it. I mean, because there isn't necessarily anything I need to do there. But I haven't been. Would I ever move back to New York? Now, I lived in upstate, not the city, upstate New York when I was a very young child. I was born in Pennsylvania. I only lived there until I was like 3. And then between the ages of like 3 and 5th grade, we lived in a small town called Horseheads, New York, in the Finger Lakes area of upstate New York. So even though my parents, my mother, never considered upstate New York their home because they were only there for like, 6 years, for me and for my older brother, for us, it really was where we were smaller children and grade school children. It was kind of where we grew up. So I really look at Horseheads, New York, sort of as my hometown as a child, even though I don't really know anybody there now. I don't have connections there now. I think I know one person there. So nobody would know me if I went there, and I haven't been back since like 1973 or something. I'll tell you a story about going back to New York. I have not ever really considered, like moving back there, but there was a time period, and I don't know what this was all about. I don't know what brought it on. Maybe it was like a midlife crisis thing or something. But when I was in my mid 40s, about 6 years ago, or like 10 years ago, I forget how old I am, like 10 years ago, I went through this period of really intense, having a lot of dreams. I have a very active dream life, and I had started having a lot of dreams about going back to Horseheads, New York, to visit, possibly going back to live. I had a lot of dreams about it, and they were always really sort of melancholic, kind of beautiful, but kind of sad. And this was where I should go back to live, the later years of my life should be where they sort of began for me. Maybe even like trying to buy the house that we grew up in back. And they were very, very intense. It was a very intense feeling, some very intense emotional dreams. I mean, I would wake up in a very emotional state from them. Not that they were negative, but they were very strong, like this desire to go back and visit. I have never gone back. I do want to go back and visit before I leave this earth. I would love to go back to Horseheads, New York, and just walk down the street, walk to school. I used to walk to school, just re-walk that route. I have really nobody to visit. It's not like that. And some of the things I really remember are not there anymore. The Arnott Mall is very different from how it was when I was there. But yeah, I would love to go back and just walk around. Would I ever go back? But that desire, and I really was serious. Like I thought, gee, maybe I should really go back and live there. Horrible weather, very cold winters. I would not like it because I would not love the fall, but I don't like these cold winters. So I at some point, after about a year of these kind of dreams and these kind of feelings, it just vanished all of a sudden, like boom, like the door closed, And my mind was like, my mind and heart and dream life and whatever were like, yeah, okay, no, moving on. Like, it just closed the door. So I don't know, but I want to go back. I do want to go back and just roam around the streets of my neighborhood, etc. I don't know what that's about. Next question. What hotel would you stay in if money were no object? Well, I guess I don't know if you're referring to Hawaii, like here. If money were no object here, I guess I would say the Four Seasons on Maui. I have strolled around that property and been on the beach very near there, and it's quite a very beautiful property. It's very gorgeous and very lovely without being nouveau riche or ostentatious but it's very impressive property and very beautiful. The pools, it's a place of great beauty. So I think if money were no object, I would stay in the Four Seasons on Maui. Next question, favorite restaurant? Wow. I guess if you're gonna say like by how often do I eat at it, which restaurant do I actually eat at the most often, I suppose the answer would be Panda. Because it's delicious and it's cheap and you get a lot of vegetables, right? Favorite restaurant? I have a temptation to say one that doesn't exist anymore just because I have such fond memories of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this out here. Back when I was after college and living on my own, in a very fond time for me, memory-wise, when I was living in what we used to call the Villa by the Off-Ramp. It's this large old house that had been divided up into different apartments, Chinese architecture style, which is to say they just slapped created walls in all these weird places and made these weird units out of what used to be like one big house. They take like a room and a half and make an apartment out of it or something. The rent was so cheap. I had friends living there that I was close with. We used to have such great times. And one of the things we would do is we would go out to the bars sometimes. And then when they would close at 2 a.m. or whenever, we would go to this place downtown in Chinatown called Tin Tin Chop Suey. It was a great place. It was kind of very mom and pop, and you might go, oh, it's kind of grimy when you would go there, but the drag queens would go there after the shows. It was like just the best. I loved it. And we used to get the kao yuk, which is like a fatty, very red colored pork that would just be greasy and so delicious. I do miss that place to today. Tin Tin Chop Suey was the bomb. Scariest thing I have ever seen in the water, other than myself sometimes, I think. Scariest thing I've seen in the water. I haven't, like the sharks, I did see sharks in Tahiti when I was there, but they didn't scare me, and it was kind of cool, actually. I liked it. What have I really seen that scared me? I mean, I have a couple of times seen jellyfish, being able to see them, because without my glasses, I can't see very well, but there were times when I did have contacts in my life and I would be in the ocean, and I do remember a couple of those times I actually could see a jellyfish or something going by, and that did sort of ignite me with fear, because I'm not exactly sure how long their tentacles reach out, so I was kind of like, I don't know, but yeah, I'm a lot less scared here in Hawaii in the water because it's very clear. You can see, quite a distance. In South Carolina, which I love the beach there, but the water is very gray colored because there's a lot of sand moving around. So you really can't see, you can't see the bottom, you can't see what's around you. So to me, that is a little bit creepy, a little bit scary in water like that sometimes, because you can't really see things that might be very close to you. Yeah. How many different states and countries have you been to? Okay. Get ready for this now. I can do the states. I've been to almost every state. I have been to almost every state. The only states I have not been to at this point in my life are Alaska. And please don't tell me to go on an Alaska cruise. I know I love cruises, and I'm not saying I won't go on one, but it's not a destination for me. I don't really care about going to Alaska. I don't care. But I have never been to Alaska. I have never been to North Dakota. I even took a trip across country one time when I was planning my trip back from the East Coast to Portland when I lived there. I specifically did a Amtrak route that went the northern way that would go through Minnesota, which I had not been to, would go through Minnesota and North Dakota, so that by the time I got to Oregon, I would have been to those two states that I had not been to. However, there was a huge snowstorm when we were in Minnesota. We did get to Minnesota, but a huge snowstorm when we were in Minnesota. They canceled the train trip the rest of the way, that particular train, because they weren't going to be able to get things cleared off, and they flew us all to Oregon. So I skipped the whole reason I took that route, which was kind of sad. So I still haven't been to North Dakota. So I haven't been to Alaska, I haven't been to North Dakota, and the only other states I haven't been to are all of the New England states. I have not been to any of the New England states. Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. I haven't been to any of them. And I'm planning a trip with my cousin. At some point, her husband and I, we want to do like a fall foliage thing one of these years. And my thing to that trip is we have to go to all New England states. It's not hard to do. They're very small and they're all close together, but we have to hit each state. I don't even care if we just cross the border for a couple miles and get out of the car and be like, we're here. But yeah, so 6, 7, there's 8, those 8 states I have not been to. Anything in New England, North Dakota, Alaska. Countries, how many countries have I been to? I haven't done a count. So let me just run through it. Well, I mean, USA, do we count that? We don't count that. Canada, Mexico, Spain, Morocco, Philippines, and now a whole bunch of islands from all these cruises. Let me go down the map. Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cayman Islands, Barbados, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Martin, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Costa Rica, Peru, Chile, Australia, I've lost count, Australia, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, Fiji, French Polynesia, Tahiti, whatever, Cook Islands, the Marquesas. Bada boom, that's it. I have this weird feeling all the time when I'm listing countries that I've been to that I've been somewhere and I've completely forgotten about it. Like I've been to some other country and it's completely erased from my mind, like alien abduction. Weird. Next question. 3 famous people. This is such a pageant question. 3 famous people, living or dead, that you would invite to the cheap lounge for drinks, and why? Okay. Well, my first choice, not really a lounge. Well, they are a lounge act, but my first choice, three famous people that I would invite to the Cheap Lounge. Cheap Lounge is my series about easy listening records that I'm uploading out to my station, Moody Mood Music. So we're talking about probably, music related people here. Number one, I don't have a particular one, but I would love to talk to a member or some members of the group, the Waikikis, which is the Hawaiian group from Belgium that recorded in the 1960s and 70s. They had a major international hit with Hawaii Tattoo, and then they recorded like 12 or 13 or more studio records of their stuff. They so inspired me as a kid. I loved their music as a kid. To me, it was the vision of what living in Honolulu, not a deserted island, but this sparkling city by the ocean full of cosmopolitan, people. Their music embodied that vision to me. So I would love to talk with somebody in that group about whether any of them ever even came here, what their inspiration was, because they wrote a lot of their own material. And just, I would love to talk with them. Now, music related, I would love to talk to, y'all are gonna think I'm just throwing this question away, like, oh my God, all the people you could choose and you're choosing these people. But I would love to also talk to at least one person that was involved with the budget label recordings like Crown and Diplomat and Halo and et cetera, et cetera. I would love to talk like with the A&R person or whoever would have been in charge of like coming up with these obtaining the same recordings from different groups and rehashing them and reissuing them and recombining them. That would have to have been the person to come up with all these different names for the groups, come up with these different cover art for these albums, maybe writing ridiculous liner notes that have, they're not even real musicians, so they're just saying whatever. I envy that person their job, and I would love to talk with somebody who actually did that for a living with a budget label record. I would love to talk to them about that whole experience and how it was and what their work environment was like. Love to get inside of a budget label and experience that or hear about that. Third one, I can think of other things, but I'm trying to think of one associated that would actually, be on the Cheap Lounge, that would be a guest in terms of records and music. Yeah, let's say, again, I don't know the individual that I would pick, but I would love to talk also with somebody from the Longines Symphonette Society, who put all these sort of highfalutin albums in the 60s through the late 50s through the 70s, box sets that are very elaborate, very beautifully produced with all these lovely liner notes and inserts, and they had this very sort of snobby image about themselves because of Longines watches. That's who they were sponsored by, so it makes sense. But I don't know, probably not the music director, but again, maybe like an A&R person or somebody involved in the marketing of that, or the putting together of like the person that actually would have decided on the artwork, the inserts, those sort of things. That really fascinates me, the kind of research behind that. So yeah, I would love to talk with, and it's interesting, none of these people is like an actual individual whose name I know. Isn't that interesting? But I would love to talk with somebody from the Waikikis, somebody from one of the budget label records like Crown or Diplomat or Spinorama or whatever. And I would love to talk with somebody from the Longines Symphonette Society. Those are the three people I personally would love to have at the Cheap Lounge. And they all dead, I think. So that's not going to happen unless there is an afterlife and we do an afterlife version of the Cheap Lounge. Okay, finally today, one more question. Have I been the victim of a crime? Yes, yeah, I have. I have had a couple of different things. Identity theft I have had happen to me. Wasn't severe and it ended up not being that much of a problem. But when I was living in Oregon and tried to renew my license, they wouldn't let me renew it because somebody in Florida using my name and social security number had a ticket that hadn't been paid and that they hadn't appeared in court for or whatever. And they wouldn't renew my license in Oregon unless I could prove it was not me. How do you prove it was not you? I mean, that's the thing. Like, how do you prove that? And as you know, the God, whatever, was looking over me in that situation. I happened to go downstairs in our basement at the time because I thought the time that that ticket was issued, I thought I was in the Philippines because I went to the Philippines once and I was thinking, I think it was that year and that summer that I was in the Philippines. And I went, it was the weirdest thing. This is really God. I mean, this is like something. I went down in this horribly messy basement that we had, boxes piled everywhere. And a ray of light, I'm not kidding you, as I walked down the stairs, literally a ray of light from the window fell on top of this box, and laying on top of the closed box, sealed up box, laying on top was my passport, my expired passport from that time. I opened it up and sure enough, I was in the Philippines. It was stamped the exact time that that ticket was issued to somebody in Florida. Yeah, right? I mean, totally bizarre. And, but fortunate, so that was cleared up. Although I still don't know who did that. We've never had another incident like that. I have had somebody walk into my house while I was in it once, asleep. Yeah, it was in that house I was talking about earlier. That was the big villa by the off-ramp, we used to call it. Yeah, I didn't lock the door. Yeah, I was young. I was like, what, in my 20s or something. I was la, 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 la. I didn't lock the door. I woke up in the middle of the night. Some guy was standing in the room and saying like, oh, where's Sandra or where's whoever? And I was like, what? And I guess he used to go to that apartment and they used to hang out and smoke weed or whatever they did. And, you know, they weren't there anymore and I don't know where they were. And he just left. I mean, it was not like anything happened. But it did actually freak me out so much that I moved later. I mean, it did. I thought it was okay, but it wasn't. It just kind of like freaked me out. I have, what else? I've had identity theft, I guess, more recently because the IRS flagged me several years ago and said somebody just tried to file an income tax return in your name and we think it's not real. So they did whatever they do and they said, yeah, this is not real. And they gave me every year I get a PIN number or something from them to put onto my taxes that, so they know that that's mine. I have been attacked coming out of my apartment one time, not here, but it was a crazy guy, literally crazy guy living in the unit next to me, not where I'm living now, but where I first moved back to Hawaii. Again, I used to live at a cheap apartment and he was living in the unit next to me and was crazy. I knew he was crazy because he used to play the keyboard and you could hear him and he just would do the same thing over and over again for like 2 hours. He would go da-da-da-da-da, 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 literally for like 2 hours every other day. And he would yell and stuff, and I don't know. One day I came out of my apartment and he just literally pulled me right up to the corner of the overhanging lanai thing and was like, oh, you're looking at me through the walls and blah, 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 blah. And I know what you're doing. And I got out of the situation quickly as I could. And one of my coworkers had actually been wanting me to move in to his apartment because his roommate moved out and he wanted me to move in there with him, and I kept saying no because it's really cheap where I am now and I don't want to screw it up and I'm by myself and it's good. But that day, the day that happened, I went to work and I was like, so Tyler, are you still looking for, someone to move into that apartment? He was like, yeah. And I said, well, I will on one condition. What's that? That I move in tonight. That after work, you and me, he had a pickup truck, like you and me and some people, other friends from work, we just go and move me out tonight at 11:30 at night when we got off. And that's what we did. 11:30, we just got off and moved me out that night, because I had talked to the landlord in the daytime and they wouldn't even tell me the guy's name, next door to me. And I thought, well, they're not gonna help. And I had to call the police and they weren't gonna do anything either. And so I'm like, okay, well, physically just remove myself from the property. That's what I'm gonna do. And I knew I did make sure, checking the law and whatever, I knew I wasn't responsible for paying them any rent or for breaking the lease. If there's some violence against you or threats made against you or whatever on the property by other tenants in the property, you can leave and they cannot, withhold your deposit or keep any money from you. They have to give you the money back from the day that you moved out. By law here, they do. So I knew that, and I made sure I wrote and told them so, and they gave me the money. So yeah, I mean, I have kind of been the victim of a crime a couple times, but I've come out of it okay every time so far, so fingers crossed. Okay, that's it for today, and we got through some, still plenty more to go, but check out the Moody Mood Music Station or Hawaiian Hi-Fi Radio, whatever, below if you want to do that, and I welcome any comments below, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Now it's time for me to go have a nice walk and figure out where I want to stop and put a to-go order in for dinner and watch some movies or something tonight. Talk to you later.